Pressing the button. All right. Just checking that YouTube is, yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are getting started now with a webinar here with Lisa Highfill. Thank you, Lisa, so much for coming. We're going to be talking about building impactful lesson plans with AI, ChatGPT, and so many other things. So we'll find out soon if that title really does justice to the whole webinar. But I'm so excited, Lisa, that you're here with me right now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you are, what you're doing right now, just what you're dedicated to. Right.
Thanks. I am so glad to be here, especially chatting with you, David. You are such a thought partner in this work with me, and so I enjoy this conversation. I am a teacher and a coach in a virtual academy in Pleasanton Unified School District. So it's a free public virtual academy in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I'm in California. Love the Bay Area. I'm about 45 minutes east of San Francisco, and I have been in my school district. This is my 29th year in the school district. So it's pretty cool to be in this new environment. I'm one of those who go figure that I would be okay during remote instruction, and found that it is a new passion of mine to talk about ways we can reach all students and meet a lot of different needs in a virtual world. So I'm on my lunch break right now. It is 12:30. I know it's we're all over the place, all over the world. I love seeing how far everyone is from. So thank you for joining us all on this interesting conversation. I have to say, David, if I summed up what is my biggest passion, I'm just a lesson plan geek. I think that really wraps up. I love creating lessons. Like, my brain does not stop thinking about my next lesson. So that's what I want to share and bring today.
All right. Well, why don't you get us started and take us through what you've prepared for us?
Great. Oh my gosh. And I see so many names. Good to see you all. Let's get started with this. And stop me if you have any questions in the chat. Being a virtual teacher, I can see both. So I am going to start right off with really talking about this idea of building these impactful lessons, plans, and entering into this new era of AI and ChatGPT. I am on Twitter at Highfill. If you feel like tweeting along or contacting me there, it's a good place to find me. I'm usually scrolling on the Twitters. So a little bit of my origin in this remote world and work. If we've met before, you might know me from HyperDocs. HyperDocs are something that we started, I guess it was like 2013 actually, in the classroom. And then it kind of took off with a book in 2016. And for those of you who've never heard of HyperDocs, they are digital lessons that teachers create and give to their students. So it's something that changes the way a teacher delivers instruction and changes the way students experience learning. And I think that's really my favorite way to kind of sum that up, because a lot of lessons, can be powerful, they can be digital, but are they purposeful? And do they really change and enhance the way all students learn? Are they accessible to all learners? I want to say that in the beginning, I was doing a lot of thinking about this as preparing for today. And I was thinking, this is like HyperDocs 1.0. I was so invested in making sure that our use of technology with students was all about that innovation and innovative learning. And I felt like that perfect innovation came from, like, when you took content and you took pedagogy and you took your technology, and it was like that perfect mesh of all three. Well, I have to say, I've been on my computer since 2019. How many of you agree with me? Like, I've been in this room on the Zoom since like, I'm glad you're raising your hands.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a little fatigue going on. I know our virtual school's hybrid. So I do go in and I'm still in the school district talking to my teacher friends, if any of you are in the audience. And I feel it. I feel the fatigue. And now I think my HyperDocs 2.0, it really got at what the heart of why I'm such a lesson plan geek. It's because I need that stimulation and that thinking when I'm creating a lesson. So I brought in the light bulb. Like I just have to have that challenge of taking unique and interesting topics and thinking about how can I put that in front of students for a good learning experience. And then I want to be creative. I want to put it in the way that is like, well, I hate to say the word pretty. That's but you know, what's wrong with
Yeah.
that? What's
It's
wrong
got to
with
be visually appealing.
visually appealing? So they go, oh, what are we doing today? That's what I always want my students to say. What are we doing today? And I just can't wait for that moment. And to be honest, I find that is what brings me the energy to do this job.
Mm.
Now, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that I have the energy every day. And I hear you on the fatigue and the tired and the all of the things that have been new to our world since remote instruction. And I'm balancing both worlds. So I have to find things that bring me that energy. And I have to say, it's that creativity, it's that cognitive thinking. It just really stretches me. And that's where I am with HyperDocs right now. It's all about that energy and kind of bringing that joy to lesson design. Now, again, to get to the heart of what also HyperDocs are, they're not just any digital lesson. They really change the way kids experience learning because they put the explore before the explain in that cycle of learning. So instead of standing up and just lecturing and telling students what the lesson's about, let them explore and build background knowledge on their own. It's that cognitive engagement from the onset of a lesson. Instead of they just sit down and just tell me what to do, tell me when it's due, how many points is it? I want to actively engage them and get them curious from the onset. And then I will explain and do some fix-up strategies to make sure everyone has got the right information and correct revise some of that understanding and schema. Then I want them to apply that knowledge. Now, we've created a lot of templates and we package in a lot of different ways. This is like a very basic template we would use, and we would, make it look pretty. Look, that's visually stimulating there for kids to say, ooh, click here. And everything is packaged right there. I can just give this to students. So thinking about this, like this template, and by the way, everything is linked here. David will be sharing this book because everything is linked up in this book.
Yeah, we'll share the book at the end just so
Awesome.
that Lisa has a chance to present her
Yeah.
work, and then we'll share out the link for everyone to go through again.
But when I was thinking, prior to ChatGPT, we were trying to explain to people, what do you put in the explore section? What do you put in the explain section? And I realized that I'm really bad at just making a title for my lessons. Look at this one. Look at this title on this one. There, and there. Well, that was super creative. I just give up at that point. And so sometimes I get that way with I don't even know, I needed some help with even coming up with objectives or, essential questions. Anyone else struggle with sometimes coming up with good essential questions that are going to, get people stay awake and energized by this? So I really, I have to say, I've taken this process and I thought, why don't I try to make a lesson using ChatGPT? And so I took one of my favorite lessons. And again, I talk about this lesson all the time. Let me see if I can find it here. Wait, is it this one? This one. I talk about this lesson all the time. What happened to the USSB? And this is made by my colleague, Scott Padway. And here's the explore, and there's the explain, and there's the apply. So I thought, let's ChatGPT this lesson. And I put the prompt in, and oh my gosh, you cannot believe what happened. Well, you can believe. You should try this. I'm using OpenAI. I don't pay for anything. I'm just trying it out. The ground floor. And what do you know? It gave me like a really good title: Media's Influence in Yale Journalism, Exploring the Role in Shaping Public Opinion. Like,
Wow.
whoa, way better. It built an objective. It gave an introduction. It told me how long my introduction will be, although I can't do anything in 10 minutes. I would definitely talk over that. It gives me the main body, and it got a little bit specific there with when to focus on yellow journalism and its impact in 1898. It got really specific. I was super impressed with that. And look, this is a live recording of it. It went a little slower. I feel like I made ChatGPT think. Because have you ever put something in and it goes like super fast?
Super fast.
I'm like, who's thinking now? And then I was like, oh, wait a second. Who's not thinking? Me.
Kind of you. I mean,
I'm not thinking at all. As a matter of fact, I was like, I didn't even like read through this whole thing. I was like, I was doing what this kid was doing already. That's a lot. And I know I will dig through that. And there were things that were really helpful, like that objective. And it actually is an outline for me, I felt like.
interesting.
And if I wanted to know, like, and think and ponder a direction to take this lesson, I'm going to see, what do I think about that outline? Now I have to really come back to this. If I were just to be the teacher and say, I'm going to make lessons using ChatGPT, and I just put in my topic and write a lesson, and then I just delivered what that just said, I feel like this is what would be in my students' heads while they were listening to that lesson, because I want to have the craft of that, designing that lesson. And so I really, as I went through preparing for today, I was thinking about, what are the implications of AI and lesson designs? What are we skipping? I know I like the easy button on a lot of things. I mean, I still make soup on the stove. There's no pressure cookers, no air fryers when I'm cooking. I want to do the low and slow kind of method. What are the implications for the fast, easy button?
Yeah, and can I jump in really quick, because
Yeah.
Patrick just put a question, and I also think pointed something out really nicely. He said, I found that ChatGPT defaults to a male-dominated Eurocentric point of view. Have you found any need to question the results of your use of the AI with your lesson? I think that's exactly what you're about to talk about here.
I am. I question everything. And yes, Patrick, soup wars. We go way back, right, Patrick? Soup wars are something I do. I make a lot of soup, but yeah, I do. I'm going to implore all of you that when you are using Chat GPT, you have to question everything. And as I rebuilt that lesson, and I'm going to walk you through that rebuilding, it messed me up. And good thing I read all of it, because it was not accurate. It was not right. So, and I really could have spent even more time with that. I think it's important it's a start. It's a start to my thinking.
This is what I used to say about Wikipedia to my students. I said, Wikipedia is a great place to start your research, but it's not where you end your research. It's just a great place to start. It's got a ton of information. I think this is the same kind of concept. I love what you just said. This is great.
I really, when I'm designing a lesson, I'm constantly asking myself, is this the best learning experience for all my students? Because that's who I'm designing my lessons for, not me. The easy button is not for me. Are they going to have this in their mind? I love the image. Thank you, Canva. The image. I want this going on in their heads and not thinking some of this. I want them actively engaged. And I hope some of my lessons I share with you, you'll do. I want like some explosions coming from all of you as well. All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah. All right.
Creating a lesson with HyperDoc, and I'm sorry, creating a HyperDoc lesson with ChatGPT. And let's start with the objectives and essential questions. Look at this amazing quote, though, from a colleague and friend of mine who said this. ChatGPT is your new personal assistant, prosthetic for our brains. It only works well if we give it a good input. Have you heard that
Yeah, I
before?
totally agree with that.
Yeah. That David, that came from you. I
Yeah,
totally.
I know.
We were talking one day and you said that. I'm like, I gotta write this down. That is so true. That it is really our personal. First of all, it's our personal assistant. And we got in a little fight the other day. I got in a fight with. Then I said thank you and apologized. And I know it's weird. It's weird. I'm having conversations with the chat.
Yeah.
But I think that I definitely hit that wall. It only works well if you put in a good prompt. And
Yeah.
that's where that thinking comes in again. And so even if I started with that basic big outline, that at least gets me thinking about how can I narrow it down and fix my prompts. So I have a couple of prompts that I put in, and I was trying to, I just started with my objectives. And I know this is small and you don't have to read the whole thing, but I was really starting to think about like coming up with 3 essential questions. And then I really wanted to understand that yellow journalism, the role it played. And so as we were going through this and putting it in, I never just stop at this. And I really encourage you to answer back. So I did. At first I did on that one. I was kind of going through it. And I started to ask it more questions, and I started to change the parameters. And again, being very specific. Can you summarize that in 1 paragraph? Can you explain that to a 6th grader so that they can understand it? I also was starting to think, my first part of my lesson is the exploration about the content. So along with those focus questions and essential questions, I wanted them to start finding good resources for what to build that background knowledge on it. And this is when I said list 3 resources for 10th grade students in order to read in order to learn more. Well, they put up 3 resources, and I went, uh-oh, those are books. Books. I don't want books. I'm like, what do you give me books for? I'm a remote teacher. I don't have those books. So I changed it. I'm on list 3 web resources instead of books. And it did.
Oh,
And it says, certainly, see, we're friends. It talks to me like it knows me. Certainly, I'll do that for you. But this is where I warn you. It gave me the links. The links were like I just clicked on them and it took me supposedly was supposed to take me to the web page. And you know what? The links were broken. They were bad.
Interesting.
Bad links. I still had to go through one of the websites. I really critique websites to make sure I'm giving fair and balanced viewpoints. And so that didn't do me very much good. That did not help. I kind of went back to the original outline and had other search terms that I could look for. But notice that revising the prompt and to get it to do the work that you were really asking it for. I was trying to think like, I'm trying to make friends with this ChatGPT. I'm like, I've never had an actual personal assistant before. So I'm like,
right.
I didn't know what to say. I'm like, you blew it. That was no good. What are you trying to feed me garbage for? And then I thought, that's not going to work. And so you have to think about like, what am I going to say? I need to be specific. I need to get my demands straight. So let's talk about this design of your lesson. Now that was the like building and gathering my resources. This is like constructing the HyperDoc, the lesson. And guess what I used this time? Before I used Google Slides, and I put the whole lesson in Book Creator.
Love it.
I know, I'm so excited. And so here's the lesson. And we started right off with that page, and we built focus questions, or chat did it for me.
Okay.
I did not make those focus questions. And I overthink a lot of lessons. So I probably would go back and actually make those even more concise, because sometimes when the kids see too much text, they're like, what? Do I have to read all that? But I probably would start my lesson off with making sure that they understand this is what we're going to learn. And then I began with the explore section of the lesson. So let me go back to explaining this. In the explore section of the lesson, I want you to notice, see all the red stars on this page?
Mm-hmm.
I went through and I thought about how many places did I use chat just for the cover and the first 2 pages of the lesson. Where you see a red star, I used chat.
Oh, interesting. Oh, okay.
I used it for the title. I used it for the subtitle. See, exploring the power of persuasion, Yellow
Mm-hmm.
journalism in the Spanish-American War and modern media. It was so much better.
Mm-hmm.
I did the focus questions. I found a reading. The readings that I put in there, I had to do it differently. I did a little more searching with that, and I found some discussion questions. Now, I have to edit everything. And anyone who knows me, I'm going to go back to soup. My soup making, I cannot follow a recipe to save my life. I always have to put my flair, my personality into it. So while they may give me discussion questions, I'm definitely going to, it's just a start. I edit and revise everything. So I was amazed at how many places it came really naturally to just reach out to chat. And so some of the elements that you might think about to build your explore sections on your lessons, building background knowledge, you could ask essential questions, something as simple as a title or a theme to your lesson. That might have been nice for focus questions, just like, this is the gist of what we're doing. Oh, I haven't said gist to chat yet. Give me the
Oh.
gist of this, right? Instead of those focus questions, I could say, look at, I can't stop thinking about this stuff.
No, and that's beautiful.
Give me the gist in 2 sentences, chat. That's all I got time for,
Right.
Do you like I've
Well,
already,
and
go ahead.
what you just said and what you're identifying here is something that someone put in the chat just a minute about prompt engineering
Yes.
and how, garbage in, garbage out. We have to get really good at asking these questions, because if you have a personal assistant who's just standing there waiting to help you, you got to be really instructive. You got to tell them exactly how you want your coffee or whatever it is that you're asking them to do. So we've got to get better. I love it.
Yeah, you do get better as you practice. And I think you have to be on your toes and beware of the easy button. I can't say that enough. I just don't even believe in the easy button. I always think there's a catch, that it shouldn't be that easy. And, I think, I did this was my prompt for getting that title. Create this in the form of a title for a discussion board. Because I was
Ooh,
actually at that point, I was trying to get more specific. And yes, there's a discussion board coming up that I use that in. So thinking about that, it would be articles for building knowledge, discussion questions, but the HyperDoc element, what is that lesson design looking like? Well, I'm engaging the thinking at the onset of a lesson. I am building in partner discussion for learning support. I have a collaborative thinking opportunity. So if we go back to this, I had them discuss and view some ideas here, more ideas on what it might look like. And then as we went through this, and I'll get to that in a minute, having that collaborative space to be able to have a group think, that discussion together, partners discussion, and looking at resources together. So that is just the first part. That's the explore portion of the lesson. And let's move on to the explain portions. Remember, our cycle of learning I'm talking through is explore, explain, apply. I mean, that's just the simplified way that whenever I design a lesson, I just go explore, explain, apply. And this is the explain portion. So any questions before I move on to the explain?
not here. There's a really nice conversation also sort of sub happening in the chat about prompt engineering and just the tendency to the GPT's a tendency to kind of make things up. Someone said earlier that they'll provide it with some context by giving it a source and saying, learn from this and then give me back something else, or you're sort of creating this narrow focus so that it gives you something really, really good instead of going out and looking so broadly at everything, but not specific.
I see the names in here. I'm like, oh my gosh, these superstar thinkers in our chat right now. I just have to say,
yeah, I know.
So I'm really here for that group think as well. Thank you for joining us. The names that I'm seeing, because you have so much to add to this conversation as well. And I think you can relate to this, or maybe not. Am I the only lesson plan geek here? Like that I just
No.
think like Who else? Just put it in the chat. Do you geek out around making lessons for your kids? Because
It's a real art.
if the thinking is not there, then my passion for that lesson is not there either. And they see right through me. They're like, oh, she's just assigning us this thing. Otherwise, I'm like, I brought you something today. I can't wait to see. Oh, and I have to say, though, it is exhausting as well. And I'm not saying that I make these for every lesson. I definitely don't. They're for my special lessons, but I've been building up quite a bank of them. And I go back and revise old lessons. I mean, that's kind of the key. This is a really old lesson. And I have revised and elevated this lesson so many times. Oh, look, this is awesome, you guys. I also, being a remote teacher, I can read the chat and talk at the same time. Keep an eye on you all. So let's talk about like that explain portion of the lesson. This is when you actually like teach. It would be the lecture, and I have to like revise schema in case they weren't getting the gist. And so sometimes I want to do that live. I want to do that portion of the lesson live. I just want to talk to y'all, but I also want to give them some time to get this is the solid final word on what this is. So I tried putting in another one of the objectives in chat, and I went through and I tried to see. I just asked. I was trying to do it from all different angles, and honestly, this portion was not for the kids. This was for me. This was for me to understand and narrow down my conversation, because I saw that they did it in a matter of like, 2 examples, framing and agenda setting. And I hadn't really thought of it that way. It was a new consideration. Now, this led me down a rabbit hole to look more into what that meant and what it's leaving out. So again, you have to critically think yourself. But I felt like I was getting way more invested in the explanation of this lesson than I've ever been before. Before I was just, assigning, go ahead, do it. And then you tell me. I felt like I got to educate myself a lot. And not only, come to find out, ChatGPT is not just my personal assistant, it's my personal tutor. I when I'm not understanding something, well, can you explain that to me? Can you explain that to me like a 6th grader? And then I go, can you now summarize it like a 2nd grader in one paragraph? Like, sorry, I don't get it. I still don't get it. But so here I go. You can see I'm gonna summarize it in one paragraph. Okay, that's a little bit better. But then it was just so much text, and maybe it was late and my eyes are getting bad. So I said, please use bullet points for the main ideas. Oh, great. So it just kept getting better and better. And of course, I think that is something that I like to play around with the chat. And so I found this great article. It's linked here, tips for ChatGPT prompts. And I see a lot of that engineering talk in our chat today, in our Zoom chat. But using references, being specific, giving examples. I love this handhold the AI. I think that's where I was getting, especially like if it's late at night and I'm impatient with it. Like, how many times do I have to tell you? That's too many words. No, kidding. Specify the tone. I didn't even think about that. It's a really good one. And I think in terms of when I'm looking especially for resources that show perspective and equity and inclusion, that is a really important to be putting in the exact prompt of what I'm looking for. I want unique perspective. I want the untold stories, and get very specific about whose untold stories I'm looking for and see what it says. I have to check though. I definitely have to look those up and make sure that the chat is not lying to me. So considering all learning needs, I need to, if I just gave them this to read, I might have lost my students. But if I gave it to them in a bulleted format, maybe students would be able to access the curriculum or the content more. I actually ended up, let's look at how this got built out. Here's the design portion. For the explain, I went with the 2 videos that we originally had. And you're really thinking about how are you going to give that learning to the students? Did I want to put a big long block of text Do I want to include just some quick access videos? And what do my instructions look like? And so for this, I'm going to go to the book. Here we are. And I did redesign it a little bit. Watch one or both of these videos. And I gave them the class discussions, which I didn't write, by the way. Chat did that for me. And then I had them share their thinking here. Now, in terms of like what I had chat do for me, it did lead me to some videos that dead ends, but then it got me thinking of what to even search for on YouTube to find some good resources. It did help me with the discussion part. To me, though, this lesson was about the accessibility. And so I did include the share the thinking here in a Padlet, and the two discussions, the two questions, and then comments. Whenever I'm having a conversation with students, I always just put comments. You should try this, everyone. Just try it. If you make a form or you do a lesson, just put the word comments and see what they'll put. You just see what they'll put. They put the most
good tip.
They put the most random things, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the best comments from just that. Because
give me an example. Are they like something that you're using to redesign the next lesson, or are you just, this is just great input from my students about how they're feeling in this moment right after the lesson?
Sometimes they're like, well, because I teach our academy is kindergarten through 12th grade. So I get the gamut of this. So sometimes it's, hi, Mrs. Highfill, I just got a dog. Okay, thank you for letting me know. And sometimes it's, I really like that video. It's really got me thinking. And sometimes it's, I don't understand what you are asking us to do here. It can be like a whole spectrum of things that you just never know what they want to share. Usually it's feedback. I really like doing the lesson like this, or, you know, you're really making me think today. Or I haven't gotten negative feedback, but I can edit this. I could delete those. No kidding. I don't
That's great. I really like that tip. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, you should try it. It's funny. They're just funny. I do them in Google Forms too. So let's think about that. Like, how did you reach all learners with this lesson? Because again, I think that is, I keep going back to that. To me, that is like why I spend all this time making these lessons. And I know, look at all my little recordings of my chat escapades. I wanted to refine that for having those bullets, or creating a timeline of events, or summarize in one paragraph, or explain for a 10th grade class. And there's just, again, this is a lot. It just keeps going, and it is a lot. But then thinking about how can I change up that prompt, list 3 web sources. Yeah, I showed you that one instead of books. And then double checking those things. Now, I think also.
So can I jump in really quick? Sorry, I don't mean to stop your line of thinking, because Eileen has asked a question and she's interested in understanding, or they're interested in understanding, how are you verifying? You were saying I go back and I check and I'm looking. What's your process look like for that in this scenario?
I think it's looking back in our classroom adopted text on the topic that I'm teaching. So I'm always starting with the standard that is, we're required to teach. So I start with the resources that have been given to me. And then I launch from there, and I go to, creditable websites. I go to original resources, documents, and try to get to that level as much. I do a lot of reading and comparing across documents. So I do lateral reading. Have you heard of that method?
Tell me more.
So, and you can go to YouTube. There's a really good video about lateral reading in terms of finding out whether a resource is true and valid. And so instead of just reading down a web page and just looking at the bottom, you start to open up new tabs as you have questions for something that's in that, and you double check it. So you would, if there's a resource here that they said something about, the year 1898, I might go and look up who were the newspaper editors at that time. And then because that might spark that kind of thinking. And then that might lead down to who is the financier behind those newspapers at that time. And then I might go look up that person, and all of a sudden I have 20 tabs open. So that lateral reading is not just building background knowledge for me. It's such a great thing to teach students as well, because it's that critical thinking piece, that engaging with the concept, not just getting through the reading and getting to the bottom and going, I don't even know what I just read.
Yeah. I mean, essentially you're doing the thinking that you want your students to do. And so, this whole process of you designing this lesson reveals a great deal about the way our students are probably going to approach this and think, how are they going to find these solutions? How are they going to find these answers? How are they going to do what we're asking them to do?
Well, are you all thinking that wouldn't it be great if the kids made this lesson? How cool would that be? Like, student created content?
That's, yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I really want to talk though, and Adina, thank you so much. You put in the lateral reading because it is like incredible for that was a game changer for me. I teach that every year over and over to students, and we practice. I love to see their lateral pathways too, because they go on different tangents based on their thinking. It's pretty cool. But back to like the design of this, I love to use videos. And I teach the students how to use videos that allow closed captioning and how to change closed captioning to various languages. And not that it's perfect, but it might help some of my language learners in the classroom have accessibility to them. It also has pacing options. I know how many of you put your videos on high speed?
Oh, my gosh.
I know. The kids
Not
are
just videos. Sometimes I'll get voice messages. I'm like, okay, 1.5 here. Let's go. Let's do that.
Like, especially if you have like a slow talker in your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, the kids do that. They speed it up. So we talk about that philosophy as a learner. I try to help the kids get to know themselves as a learner. I think that's really important as well. So we talk about pacing, and I say, you can speed it up, but are you going back and re-listening? Because it's really easy to go back if you miss something, you can see it really quickly and you don't have to reread everything. This shared thinking is huge. This is a really important piece, and I put it in at this point, these conversations, before I call on kids outright. Let them rehearse, let them build meaning with the support of the whole group. Do a group think. Imagine what it is for your language learners. They can just literally be looking at others' comments and picking up spelling so they can have a comment as well. I often leave that they could do that anonymously because that's even more powerful. They're not fearing that judgment when they put this on here. I don't do it for points. I mean, I do it for points, then I'm going to get that kind of level of thinking like, well, how many do I have to do? I want them to do it because they are interested in sharing that thinking and they want to get it out there.
And the group thinking also allows for a little bit of validation. Maybe you said something and you're the one sharing and someone's saying exactly what you're thinking. You think, oh, okay, this is probably in the right direction. I think that validation is really important to build the confidence to then be the one to raise your hand and jump in and say something. You don't want to be the only one who stands out wrong or right or even.
Well, I find I need that all the time because look, I'm even asking all of you, are you lesson plan geeks? Because I kind of need to read the room. And sometimes you can't read the room if we're not like sharing what's going on, or like, am I way off base with this opinion?
And being a little vulnerable.
Yeah. So, vulnerable. That's a good word. I was, because that's hard for kids to do. And it's hard for adults to do.
Everyone. Yeah.
I think this is becoming more and more quite a theme for me. Less is more. Colors, fonts, graphics, content. So how many times did I look at this and rebuild this because of spacing, because of the look of it, because too many colors, because of the design? And I was just oohing and awing with David before I came on. I love book creator design. Like I aspire for that because it's just really appealing for me as a learner to look at. and to be able to pull information pretty quickly. So I work on
Well,
that.
and you just said less is more. It's really, there's something about Book Creator, and I don't know if you go to the read mode, you can even have it set so that you only see one page at a time instead of the double. And when you say less is more, you can really craft a lesson so that the students are only seeing that one page, or just ask
Yes.
them to do that, or they can do that themselves. And
Yeah.
that is a, you know, having the settings and the way that you can read the book and experience it, I think does change the experience.
I was playing around with that, the one page versus the full spread. And then when I had the full spread, I was like, how do these look together for my students? How are they going to access this? How big is the font? You know, how will they be able to follow these steps, or will they be lost? Because I don't want to tell them, I don't want to walk them through this. I want students to have agency with these digital lessons where, you know, I could just give it to them and say, everything you need to know is in this book. I trust you. You will be able to make it through this lesson. Like if something happens, I got to leave the room or I'm absent that day, I'm going to create a HyperDoc lesson, and all of the things they need are built into that lesson. And it just builds that confidence for them as a learner. It gives them choice. They can do their own pacing. It's like amazing blended learning for them. Yeah. Brianna, thank you for that comment about that authenticity, you know, and taking away that pressure and about the finding the answer. Being in a virtual academy for multitude of reasons, the students I work with, we build in that social emotional learning in the lesson design. It's not a
Exactly.
separate curriculum. So when I said, you know, do your Padlet and don't require names, that's me addressing that social emotional piece and encouraging kids to be confident with their responses and go ahead and put it out there. And I won't even care if it's not the best answer ever, because no one knows it's yours. You know, or I might highlight some, and a student might feel like, oh my gosh, they noticed me. I can next time claim that comment, you know.
Lisa, this is one of the things about HyperDocs and just your style of lesson planning that has always really appealed to me, because the ownership piece has been placed with the student as you being someone who's designed an experience of learning and put a lot of time into a HyperDoc and then given it to a student. They have so much more agency and ownership when they're going through a HyperDoc than when they are just sitting and listening and doing in a very constructed order. But this process is so much more thoughtful and thinking about learning as this journey and this organic thing, and like loud reading, and just the way you lesson plan is so much more humane and humanistic. I think it's really, when people get into HyperDocs and when they see the way you speak about lesson planning, they're like, this is learning. This is what it's supposed to be like. It's not just school. So
Well,
just wanted to comment.
and can you see how much I'm learning in this lesson, you know? And so I'm not bored, and I have this energy and this excitement. I'm learning alongside them, and they can relate to me because they can hear my ahas and my wonders as well. And again, I have to say though, for our tired people in the audience, I don't do this for every lesson. But when I need that pick me up, I sure do think of these lessons. Let's get on track though with the apply portion of the lesson, because this is the do. This is the show what you know, the performance assessment. And oh my gosh, I had a lot of ahas from this one, David. This was a lot of new territory for me, because normally I'm like, pick a tool and just show what you know from the lesson. Well, I decided to scaffold it a little more. And look what I put in. I not that this is the most creative. I just did this once and tried it out. Write 10 book titles, each one exploring a different angle or perspective of yellow journalism. So I had them do 10, and I had to really think about the titles. When I ended up utilizing them, I cut it down to, I think, 8 because I took
Mhm.
some out because I don't want that one. But it's about those different perspectives on the topic. And it might have been from a business point of view, the business side of yellow journalism. It might have been, the rise and fall. Like, do we have a fall of that? I mean, it's such a topic for today, right? And I think it did said lessons for modern media landscape, and bringing that into today's world. So that was a way to scaffold it. I knew I was going to have the students create with Book Creator this time, because I'm just on a Book Creator tear right now. And I thought, why don't I start them off with titles? And they could self-select which angle or perspective they wanted to take in order to show what they know on the topic. And I took that from that I'm the worst title maker. And so I thought maybe they are too, and they could just take one or readjust it. And then I said, create a graphic organizer for one of the titles for expository writing standards for 10th grade. Yes, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I know. From my perspective, from when I was writing lessons and making lesson plans, making the graphic organizer was so much extra.
It's so much work. And I didn't even like screenshot the whole thing. It made it in a chart for me. So I made a graphic organizer for the kids, and I took just one of the titles, and there's so many ways I'm still going to play around with the graphic organizer. But again, I was trying to get writing standards, and I do need to that's the double check. Are those my standards in where I live for my students? So I wasn't specific on California writing standards because that's where I'm teaching from. Are you checking out my standards there? Look at.
Well, no, so there was a question in the chat that said, do these books exist? And I was trying to explain that the task was to create a fake book title that would summarize your point, like whatever the prompt was.
Yes.
So no, Elena, these aren't real books. The point was that the students had to be creatively developing like a hypothetical book that would then explain the prompt.
It was kind of like a title for their work, like their report they're going to write. Instead of me giving them a topic for the report, normally I would give them like discussion questions to then write and inform us about. I think that's what the old lesson said. Possible questions, pick one of these questions and then show what you know using Book Creator. And so it's kind of elevating this, because I did allow them to do their own choice of a topic, but it's kind of just changing that up and scaffolding a little more because I wanted more writing emphasis in the lesson. And I thought I can't do that unless I start to tell them what I expect in this writing. And so the graphic organizer would really walk them through those expectations. So then I thought, what about, this is performance assessment in a virtual world that has been really important for us. How can we do these assessments online? And it's performance assessments, and they're all different. And so we need to think about how we're going to grade those as well. And I was so excited about this prompt. Let me see if I'm going to launch it and then, oh shoot, it's going to cover it up. Create a 1-point rubric for that writing using Jennifer Gonzalez's technique. Now, Jennifer Gonzalez is from Cult of Pedagogy, and I love her 1-point rubric. And I had it write a 1-point rubric for me. Now,
get it. That's amazing.
I was so excited. And it kind of followed it. I mean, I knew it was talking about the criteria. I love how it sums it up. Like, here you go. And then I think I did it again. Oh, maybe I did it. I thought I did it again. Yeah, recreate it in a chart, including criteria in the center of the chart, create a column to the left with space for writing comments, and create a column to the to the right for areas of strength. Oops, see, I gave it the wrong prompt. So it started to give me columns. And this was, I've done this before where it gave me an actual table and chart. This was different. I'm not paying for any of this. So no, it's just regular.
Well, I think so. Someone just asked in the chat if this is GPT-3, and I think 4 is the most recent one that's out. It's so I wanted to address this at some point.
Uh-huh.
I was watching a video before we had this because I wanted to be brushed up. And what I started to realize, and that they even pointed out in the video, is that this stuff is changing at such an exponential rate. It's impossible to keep up. No one has kept up. If you are a teacher right now and you are feeling stressed and pressured about AI coming in and you not being at the tip of the spear or under, you can't. Stop trying. It is way too much because it is changing so rapidly that you need to be looking at Twitter. I mean, these guys were talking about it in the video. They were saying we had to update this presentation like an hour before we gave it. And they're talking to like massive executives. This is a big presentation. They're having to update it an hour before they gave it, simply because things were just happening that you had to put in there, became relevant. So yeah, this is a very rapidly changing space with AI.
No, and I hear you, Eileen. I'm using Bard as well on early release of that, and that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm gonna remind you, less is more, everyone. And I definitely was hoping you would see that I'm modeling that. Look, I have my chat. This is my chat here. That was my last thing I said. This is how long this whole discussion was.
Oh wow.
I just kept prompting and prompting and prompting in the same
Mm-hmm.
one from the beginning and
Have
creating.
you asked it to give you a summary of that whole conversation?
Oh my gosh, we should do this live.
Let's just do it live.
A summary of this.
So Eileen has asked, while you're doing this, I just want to address this. Eileen has asked, no, I'm sorry. Someone else asked it. Are we giving the tools to the students? And I'm just going to preface this by saying there's a whole like age piece there, and so it's very dependent upon the tool and the criteria at which the student or the age of the student and the tool is allowed to be used and your filters. So, okay, what's happening?
Patrick is just prompting. He's all, you got to say gist. So
just, yes, I love
like
it. Okay.
Already too long for me because I got time for this. So summarize this, giving me just the gist. Use bullet points. Let's see if it'll do it. I love that they have Jen Gonzalez because I talked about that. That's awesome. Look, so funny.
Cool.
I know this is fun. And if you also have talked to me before or know me, I'm very frugal. I hate to pay for things. And so I'm not paying for ChatGPT. I'm waiting. I'm just watching and playing. And yeah, there we are. That was the whole conversation. I mean, it's just incredible to have, and I can go back and check it over here. And I'm just using chat.openai.com.
Yeah, Christy's saying apparently, so this is news to me. You can buy ChatGPT 4, you can pay $20 a month.
Yes.
And they're saying, people are saying it's totally worth it, but Christy's like, I need a grant or something. I'm a broke teacher here. Help me out.
That's, I always start to design from less is more, just for that reason. Because I can't just be paying for all the things, because I like to try all the things. And I do hear in districts that it's blocked. That's when I start tethering to my phone, do it at home. And because again, I want to point out, nothing I've shown you is for the kids to do. You are the learner today.
Yeah.
ChatGPT for you, the lesson designer. So,
right.
I am not there. I teach littles. It is not okay for them to make an account, and so I don't do any of that. I'm just kind of playing around. Padlet has a little, I don't know if you've seen that before. They have a little AI image generator we played with, but
Edpuzzle has one now for writing questions, I think.
So I just wanted to point out, though, that I don't love the results all the time. And so I went to a Google Doc, I created a table, and I took bits and pieces of what chat gave me for that 1-point rubric and built my own. I wanted it to look a certain way. I have it now linked. Students can use the template. And so when they're building this out, and let's look at what it looks like this is the design your lesson. You're getting kids to think and create and showcase. And that is a word Thank you,
Mm,
David. I think maybe you got me on this kick with design thinking. And for
mm,
me, I always want them to showcase their learning and their creativity. So in terms of chat, I created the book titles. There's my stars again. Created the book titles with varying perspectives about the topic, and a graphic organizer for scaffolding expository writing standards. And then just gave an array of topics that students could choose from that was more interest-based learning, and that agency again where students feel in control of their learning. I'm seeing that a direct correlation. I've actually done a lot of research on that one in terms of anxiety and depression for our students. When they feel more in control of their learning experiences, it helps to decrease that anxiety. And so I want to build that piece into my lessons. I wanted to consider choice for a tool to showcase learning. This time I didn't. I went with, you're going to use Book Creator. And there's another app. Did you notice? I got one more app in there. When they finished making theirs, they were to share on the Wakelet. And so everyone's going to put theirs right here. You can just paste your link from your Book Creator book, and it's my digital bulletin board right there.
Can I jump in really quick?
Yes.
Because this just happened last week. There's another live awesome one. If you go back to Wakelet, and I don't know if it'll work in this moment. I don't want to ruin it.
Okay.
But if you paste if you paste a link to a published Book Creator book right there, and you hit enter, you no longer just have a link to the book. Oh, if this works live, this would be cool. You actually have you can flip through the book. Oh, bummer.
Is it working?
It should. It might be the share settings for this particular book.
Okay.
But yeah, you can now flip through a book right on Wakelet. Oh, it's a bummer it didn't work. Okay. Anyway, it was a huge fun thing we got working last week. And so it might be the share settings of the book. It might have to be the read version of the book. But yeah.
Oh, right,
super exciting.
So
look, wait. Tara said change the layout to media in Wakelet and it should work.
Okay.
But I don't want to derail you. We're almost out of time. And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Go try it. Listen, if you're watching, go try this at home. Put your Book Creator links into Wakelet. You can flip through them right there. It's beautiful. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
That's okay. I just want you to know too, when you access this book, this is the graphic organizer. It's just a mock one I created. There's the links to the Wakelets. You can try this. You can remix this and add your own links if you don't want to do shared links. But I did want to. That was the apply. That was it. But I have a couple of takeaways for you in the last couple minutes. I go back to what Catlin Tucker said, that we are the architect of learning experiences, and chat will never replace me, ever, because it's my craft I brought to that lesson. I showed you the first time I put it through. It was a big, long outline. And I don't know any students who are going to be engaged in critical thinking and creativity through that one. I was the architect that designed this powerful learning experience. I included here, and it'll open up for you to check it out. Using the HyperDoc template, what are some prompts that you can do for the Explore section? What are some prompts when you're trying to build the Explain section? I just wanted to put them all in one place for you so that you can kind of check that out. And it would not be like me if I did not come with some new HyperDocs to share. I'm so excited about these. So I wanted to showcase that this was someone put in here, they hadn't thought of packaging HyperDocs on Book Creator. This was one of my favorite ones to start the school year. So if you're looking for a really great one, this video is the best, but this is packaged on slides. And I redid that and look, everyone fell asleep. Redid it and packaged the whole thing on Book Creator, and the kids love this. Love to go through and explore and try their hand at creating with this and building in the extensions for that one. But my newest one I'm doing this one tomorrow, and I'm going to do this lesson in 2nd grade through 12th grade. So if you're wondering what grade level, it's a brand new one. My friend Roland, big shout out to Roland. He tweeted this not that long ago. Look, only end of April. This pep talk generator. This is how I come up with these lessons. I saw a pep talk generator. I was like, oh my gosh,
I like that.
we need that. And I loved what he said. It's always a good time for a pep talk. And maybe I've been watching a lot of Ted Lasso lately or something, but I felt like we could all use a little pep talk right now. Or Miss Kid President, right? And so let me go, but we need a pep talk. So I made one with Book Creator, you guys. This is so fun. I'll tweet this out too. So if you're following me, L Highfill, I'll be sure to tweet this one out. But look, I used AI because I did not want to read that. Let's see if you can hear it.
A pep talk is when someone tells you how amazing you are and encourages you to try your hardest. It can come from anyone who loves and cares about you.
Okay, he's a slow talker. I gotta pause. There's no speeding him up.
1.5.
I know, but watch this. So when you click, as I embedded this right here, this is the pep talk generator. I took his little chart and I built it on Flippity. And so you can do the whole thing and it builds your pep talk. Look at it.
I love it.
And then there it is, Superstar. That brain of yours is 100% legit. That's just science. So fun. And so
that was a live generated pep talk. Love it.
And then just saying, I like that better. Okay, now the lesson, it goes on where, where am I? There we go. The next part of the lesson, they are going to, because you can incorporate Canva right in. And so they're going to take that pep talk and they're going to make a Canva poster and design their poster and put it on the next page. And then they're going to add it to the Wakelet and email it to themselves with future me. Right?
Oh man, that is such a great lesson that you just shared. I love that it's in a book creator. Is that linked to the other link, the book that you sent me? Because I put that link over here, but I'm going to make sure everyone gets it in the email. Just for anyone out there who's worried that you're not going to get all the stuff that Lisa's created, you're going to get it all. Trust me, we're going to send you all the links. You're going to get it all. And I'll make sure that an email goes out to anyone who's registered, who's going to get the link to this. They'll get, I'm going to download the chat because there's been so many good links shared. I'm going to pull all those out. So yeah, this has been a fantastic chat. I love that pep talk lesson. I love that you rebuilt one of your favorite lessons and just went through the process, but used ChatGPT to support your lesson planning and your exploration and your process. And it allowed you to learn a little bit more about what I heard you say was you learned a lot about how you are thinking. It sort of re-energized the topic because, as teachers, we're reteaching content, very similarly each year. And so a HyperDoc, we always tell people, you don't do this for every lesson, but if you do a couple each year, you start to build up a pretty good pile of these things. And it sounds like, ChatGPT is a great way to sort of supercharge our effort to stay fresh and to keep revisiting things and to just keep the students really, really engaged. So I really, really loved this conversation. And as for the chat, it is quite obvious that everyone else has really also enjoyed this. So well, Lisa, any final comments? Go.
I just want to say that follow me on Twitter, L Highfill, and join the HyperDocs Facebook group. Really active group there, and I'll be putting this lesson there as well because I am I'm a sharing person. We created Teachers Give Teachers to go along with this, and the kinds of lessons that I've really been spending my time on. You might have to have me back again, David. Because my lessons this year have all been around executive functioning and teaching kids how to be a student. And it's really changing kids. And so I'm really excited about that work.
Yes. Yeah. Learning how we learn and thinking about how we think. It's a beautiful thing. Lisa, you have inspired me. I am energized. It's 9:30 at night here in the UK. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go to bed now. I'm going to start writing lessons and stuff. I'm so excited.
Pep talk.
Yes. And if you're tuning in live, thank you so much for spending an hour with us. Your presence was incredible. And if you're rewatching the recording, also, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us and just have this conversation about lesson design and lesson plans, a little bit of HyperDocs, a little bit of Book Creator. We app smashed, I think I counted 5 or 6, but then at the end you threw in like 7 or 8, like flipping and wiggling. You're all over the place. So good. Thank you so much.
Really
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. There is definitely some follow-up here. We should definitely get another Lisa Highfill special on. It was absolutely brilliant to have you here. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was so good to hear from all of you in the audience. So keep in touch. Let's make lessons. All right.
Let's make lessons. Follow us on Twitter. I've put my email in the chat at least 10 times. But if you're interested in reaching out, you can follow Lisa at L Highfill on Twitter, and I am at D Hotler on Twitter as well. And you can always reach me at dhotler@bookcreator.com. So we'd love to hear from you.